Okay, so recording is on. So again, good morning. This is the webinar for Caroline Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions co-funded fellowships, collaborative research fellowships for a responsive and innovative Europe. We have covered the slide before the recording started, so I'm not going to spend any time with that any longer. So the purpose of the webinar is to clarify the nature of the scheme, some of the rules, some of the requirements. The purpose is not to provide proposal preparation, support and guidance. That would be a role of the research office in the proposed home host organization. So just to set the expectations for the content. We do have few bits of pieces that are in the area of proposal preparation support, but it's not the main purpose of the webinar. So as this slide indicates, the scheme has received funding from the European Union's Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme and the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Grant Agreement, number on the screen. It is significant because the fellows are not only Irish Research Council fellows, but they are also Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions fellows with the benefits and the prestige associated with both fellowship types. What is really important to keep in mind as you are preparing your application, and also obviously as the fellowship is being undertaken, are the aims of the program. There are aims obviously related to research as such. So the key aim of the program is to conduct research relevant to the overarching theme of global sustainable development as it's set out under the United Nations 2030 agenda. But there are really important aspects in relation to career development of researchers undertaking those research projects. So it is the aim is to support researchers to engage in international collaboration with suitable non-governmental organizations or international organizations, so that researchers can experience and benefit from intersectoral and international mobility. These are really important features of the scheme, which will provide you guidance as you are making decisions regarding tailoring the proposal and making decisions regarding eligibility or suitability of proposed partner organizations. So under the fellowship, researchers will have opportunities to avail of relevant training and career development opportunities, and the aim of the program is to increase chances of researchers of gaining a future senior research position, including in the non-academic sector. So I just have a few slides to come back to individual aims of the fellowships program. So I presume you would have all be familiar with the United Nations 2030 agenda. So just a pictorial that shows those schemes, just to bring up the broad variety and inclusiveness of research topics that can be funded under the program. We would have been actually asked why the scheme targeted Sustainable Development Goals, and there is a lot to be delivered from the point of view of the main aims of Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions as such, which strongly supports mobility of researchers. So the Sustainable Development Goals, by their nature, really can support international mobility, intersectoral mobility, and interdisciplinary mobility. The international mobility and the importance of engagement of researchers and non-academic or community sectors from various countries is a key condition for making significant progress in attaining Sustainable Development Goals. And the exchange or flow of researchers between different countries will be really important for progressing in those areas. The intersectoral mobility again, given the nature of the themes or topics that the Agenda 2030 aims to address, the engagement of civil society and international organizations is absolutely key to making progress in these areas. Another aspect of this intersectoral mobility, in addition to potential benefit of the researchers, is that the NGOs and IOs themselves can gain significantly from participation in these fellowships. Interdisciplinary mobility, it's one would be tempted to say almost given these days, but especially in relation to Agenda 2030, there is a balancing of the three dimensions of sustainable development, the economic, social and environmental dimension. So it again itself offers itself to Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions and to career development and future career prospects of researchers benefiting from these fellowships. Now, there is a couple of slides which I'm not going to actually go through line by line. I just wanted to include them in the webinar and in the slides that will be then available on the website, because sometimes applicants, as the application process is quite demanding, the application form is really long, and you need to work with various partners and mentors, and you might feel tired and might be thinking at some point in the process, is it even worth all the trouble and all the effort? It really is worth. If we disregard the possible benefits of the research to make a difference, to help improvements in the areas specified in the Sustainable Development Goals in the Agenda 2030, from the point of view of researchers, having and completing a Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowship really has significant benefits for individual researchers. So if you ever need during the process some boost to your motivation, go and look at these slides, what previous Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action Fellows said about benefits and importance of the fellowship for their future career. The Irish Research Council previously had other Marie Skłodowska-Curie co-funded programs, so we have our own experience with these programs, and the fellows who completed their programs really send us very positive comments and feedback on the benefits and importance of their fellowship for their future career and for them, for their chances to secure positions both within academia and beyond academic sectors. So just a couple of motivational slides for future use. So to go back to the scheme as such, I wouldn't want to assume that everybody is deeply familiar with the structure, even though at this point in time applicants would be expected to be fairly advanced in their proposal preparation. But just to summarize, so there is a tripartite structure. The researcher will be engaging with at least two organizations, which is the main home host organization in Ireland, and then there is a partner organization which we call a main partner organization, where the researcher will be seconded, and this organization will have to be one of the eligible non-governmental or international organizations. I'll be returning back to the question of eligibility and type or suitability of organizations to act as main partner organization in a short while. I just need to move to the next slide. So the scheme facilitates two types of fellowships. The first type that I'll be kind of explaining, summarizing, are the international fellowships. These are 3 years fellowships as I just mentioned, the researchers will be hosted by an eligible research performing organization in Ireland. So any of the Irish higher education institutions, and there is a number of additional organizations that are eligible to host researchers that are granted our funding. And these researchers then work with an academic mentor affiliated with their home host organization. For the first 2 years of the international fellowships, researchers will go on a secondment to a partner NGO or international organization, which will have to be outside of Ireland. And they will have a secondment mentor to support them during this secondment, which must be somebody who is affiliated, employed by this main partner organization. This is really important. It's not possible to have a mentor for the secondment who is actually not affiliated or employed by the main partner organization. You can't have two mentors from your Irish home host organization, one in the role of academic mentor and another, or the same, in the role of the secondment mentor. It needs to be somebody from the non-academic sector organization. And so these first 2 years, this secondment really needs to be taken as a continuous period of time from the first month, from the first day of the fellowship. For the next 24 months, the researcher is on a secondment. It is possible to take a placement whilst the researcher is on a secondment to an organization basically anywhere in the world, provided that the mobility rules are complied with. Now, I'll be commenting on these a bit later. The third year of the international fellowship is then spent with the Irish home host organization. And again, it is possible to go on to an optional placement during this third year, this returning phase, obviously with the agreement and with the prior justification in the application form. So this is the structure of the international fellowship. The Irish fellowships then, they are of 2 years of duration. The researcher again is hosted and employed for the entire duration of the fellowship by an Irish home host organization and has an academic mentor within this organization. And under the Irish fellowships, the researchers are then seconded to an eligible NGO or IO in Ireland. Now, these secondments can be between 6 and 12 months, so it's up to the applicant and the mentors to agree the most suitable duration for their proposed fellowship, depending on the nature of the research project, depending on the nature of the training activities. It just needs to be suitable for what is being proposed. So there is no preference given to 6 months or 10 months or 12 months. It depends on what is the best duration and the best content of the secondment for your proposed fellowship. And again, the same rule that I described previously about secondment mentor, who will need to be affiliated with the home host, with the main partner organization. The rule about option placement applies similarly to Irish fellowships. It is possible to undertake an optional placement during an Irish fellowship also. So this slide kind of summarizes or outlines situation with the partner organizations of the NGO type of partner organization. There is a huge variety when it comes to terminology. So it is really not possible to say give a unique, all-covering, all-comprehensive definition of an eligible NGO. They can be national, they can be international, they can be charities, they can be called civic or civil society organizations. There really is a big variety, especially given that we are working, or the researchers will be working with organizations located anywhere in the world. So it really isn't possible to give an absolutely bulletproof definition which would answer all questions or scenarios that might arise. So the scheme and the Caroline scheme, the term of NGO, it really is used in a very broad definition, broad sense of the definition. The common features of eligible non-governmental organizations, and I would refer you to the terms and conditions of the scheme, where the quite comprehensive document includes definitions of NGOs and international organizations, and which organizations actually are considered eligible to act as main partner organizations. So please do review these if you have any, not even if you have any doubt, but just before you confirm, before you apply with a certain partner organization as your proposed home host organization, make sure that they really are eligible NGO and can host you for a secondment. So they would have to be a private legal entity. They do need to be independent of government or political control. They do need to be not-for-profit, and they do need to have a specific, their own defined governance structure. They would typically also have publicly available information about their finances. They would often, but not necessarily depending on the country of where they are established, they would have some registration number. So there are a number of criteria that you might need to verify or ascertain to determine eligibility of your proposed home host. Sorry, I keep saying the wrong term, of your proposed main partner organization. In terms of international NGOs, they are quite known, and we did not have an experience with difficulties or confusions under the first call when it comes to eligibility of international NGOs. So just have a slide with a couple of examples on it. Similarly, international organizations, there is less of difficulty in determining their eligibility because they really are defined quite clearly. They would be organizations established on the basis of intergovernmental agreement, and there are online resources that can be used to actually get a list of these organizations or confirm that an organization actually has been established on the basis of intergovernmental bilateral or multilateral agreements. So again, a slide with a few examples of intergovernmental organizations that you can consider as partners for your secondment. Now, a specific category of international organizations are European interest organizations. So again, if anybody is in doubt, they also qualify as main partner organizations. So as I mentioned previously, we aren't really in the position to give all comprehensive definition of an eligible main partner organization. It very much depends on national circumstances, and it depends really on on the organization status. So as you are verifying or deciding about eligibility of your proposed main partner organization, do review the definition in the terms and conditions. If you are in doubt, if the organization seems to be fitting the definition, however, their scope of activities might not really seem to be what the scheme would require, do refer to the aims of the scheme. If the secondment would not provide intersectoral mobility, then even if the organization is actually established as not-for-profit and is independent of governmental control, then they would not provide you intersectoral mobility, and then the aim of the scheme would not be fulfilled. So these organizations can't really be deemed eligible to act as main partner organizations. We had a number of inquiries about universities being eligible for secondment, and they are not, they can't act as main partner organizations. The Research Council will be performing eligibility checks after the application process is completed. We will endeavor, we will do our best to clarify and to verify status of organizations that applicants would propose as their main partner organization if we are approached by research office or by the applicant or by the organization. But we can't guarantee that these checks can be completed on time before the application deadline. Sometimes we would need to require legal documents from the proposed organization to actually verify their status. So it really is quite important that the applicants themselves undertake these checks and verify that the organization indeed is can be deemed eligible as a main partner organization for secondment. And the final note, we will be requesting relevant documentary evidence from successful applicants. So, where organizations are registered in relevant national or international registers, and we can confirm ourselves that the organization's eligibility.
So we have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a question. Please clarify for Irish Fellowship, the main partner organisation, the NGO or the IO, should be located at Ireland.
So I'm not sure if you could hear the question. The question was if the organisations for the Irish Fellowships would have to be located in Ireland. So the answer is the answer applies to both Irish and international fellowships. It's the organization can be established basically anywhere in the world, but they would have to have physical presence with a certain infrastructure in place in the country to which you would like to go for the secondment. So what is not possible is to have an Irish-based, Irish-established NGO and then go and spend 2 years in another country on your own without that organization having an office, a physical location with some staff and some infrastructure to support you, to embed you, because that would not again be meeting the aims and the purpose of the scheme. It would not provide you intersectoral mobility and experience. Being on your own without support and without being embedded within the organization would not fulfill the purpose of the scheme. So that's this question asked. Thanks, Mary, for raising it with me. Optional placements. Again, this is specified, this is clarified in the terms and conditions, but I just wanted to have it mentioned on the slides also, because it is really important that those placements, where they are proposed, are justified, and then the benefit of these placements is really demonstrated in the application form. The purpose is not to fragment a fellowship and for the fellows to spend a few months in one place and a few months in a different organization, and then not really yielding sufficiently substantial engagement with any of the organizations. So the international evaluators are going to look quite closely at justifications of the proposed optional placements. One very practical, and now moving from the features of the scheme to benefits for the fellows, and salary and the overall package that the fellows, the researchers will be receiving is indeed quite important aspect of the scheme. So sometimes there is a bit of confusion in that the scheme is co-funded under Marie Skłodowska-Curie, but there are special rules that apply to co-fund. So people who are familiar with Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowships, please do not rely on your knowledge and understanding of those fellowships, because the co-funds are governed by slightly different rules, and whatever is specified in Caroline terms and conditions that are published on the Council's website, that applies to Caroline. So what is common with Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions and all awards is the base rate of the allowances that are due, that are paid to the institutions that are employing the fellows. So the scheme pays 55,800 euro towards living allowance, but this amount is adjusted by the applicable country correction coefficient. Then the fellows will be paid a mobility allowance, which is 7,100 euro per year for year 1 and 2 of the fellowship. And then researchers who have dependents or with spouses are entitled to a family allowance, which is 6,000 euros per year. Now, these two allowances are not adjusted by the country correction coefficient. Now, just a few technicalities that might actually be quite important for you, especially if you are going to countries with very different cost of living, and if you are considering placement during your secondments into different countries. So in the middle of the slide, you can see examples of country correction coefficients. So, you know, we have France, which is slightly over 100. We have Romania, around 70%, Ethiopia 85%, Ireland has 113% of the base rate. Now, these correction coefficients apply to countries, so there is no adjustment made for people going to a capital city. So you need to keep in mind that there is a huge difference in cost of living, even in undeveloped or developing countries. If you are living in a small town, or if you are living in the capital, which might be more expensive than some European countries. So another note is, another thing for noting is that the scheme, even though the mobility requirements apply to placement in the same way as they apply on secondments, salaries paid during placement are not adjusted for the country of the placement. You would be receiving your salary, which is calculated on the basis of the country correction coefficient, as if you had not been going to placement. So, as an example, somebody who is on a secondment in, let's say, take an example from the slide. If somebody is on a secondment in Romania and then during the secondment goes to a placement to France, even whilst they are in France, they will be paid on the basis of Romanian country correction coefficient. And the other way around. If somebody is in France for their secondment and undertakes placement in Romania during their secondment, they be still paid on the basis of the France country correction coefficient whilst in Romania. So I just wanted to clarify that at this point in time. We have a question on this?
Yes, so we have a question from Joshua. Is the 7,200 mobility allowance given as a scholarship stipend, or is it taxed?
So all allowances are basically considered taxable income. All fellows will be employed by an Irish institution, even whilst on secondment. your Irish home host organization will be paying you the salary. They will be making all applicable deductions and contributions that are applicable within the Irish context and within your given home host organization, which might be different when it comes to pension contributions, for example. There is a bit of detail involved in relation to which allowance is subject to what deductions, and I would actually advise you to refer to contact the HR or salaries office in your proposed home host organization. It might depend on which organization exactly you are going to be employed in. It depends. So I wouldn't want to actually go into that level of detail during the webinar. Okay, so in addition to the salary, obviously, as the terms and conditions indicate, there is a contribution towards research, training and career development and networking costs. The partner organizations, there is a contribution towards indirect research costs. Fellows who aren't entitled or can't get, actually this warning isn't exactly accurate, fellows who are not entitled to the European Health Insurance Card would get cover for their health insurance. And then the Irish Research Council has a maternity leave policy, and there is a paid maternity leave provided to the fellows. Now, I'm just now moving to the area of eligibility rules and basically scheme rules. There are three really important areas, or three sort of rules that all applicants need to be well aware of, and need to check these three areas. So the scheme funds experienced researchers. This, in the language of the European Commission, means either somebody who is in possession of doctoral degree at the time of recruitment, and because this is designed as a postdoctoral scheme, there is a cap on the time that elapsed since the award of the degree, which is up to 7 years after the award of the degree. Now, I'm emphasizing that people have to be in possession of doctoral degree, because having passed your viva does not constitute award of the degree. You would have to have the parchment, your awarding ceremony would have to take place by this time of recruitment. The other option, the other type of experienced researchers are applicants who do not have doctoral degree, but who have at least 4 years of full-time equivalent research experience at the time of recruitment. And again, not all definitions can be squeezed onto these slides, so those who are not aware of this, I would just emphasize that undertaking doctoral PhD studies, PhD research does count as research experience. Now, we would have received a good few questions regarding what actually constitutes research experience if minor research thesis undertaken during master's studies qualifies, etc., etc. I would refer you to the FAQs document for these, and I wouldn't want to discuss this too much in detail, because there isn't really a universally applicable answer. It all needs to be considered on an individual basis, and documentary evidence will be required from successful applicants to confirm their experienced researcher status. Now, the time of recruitment, which we keep referring to, has been set for the 15th of February 2018. So where you see the term type of recruitment for Caroline Call 2, that is 15th of February 2018. Mobility rules. We have separate slides for international fellowship and for the Irish fellowships, but actually the rule is the same. It is that researchers must not have resided or have had undertaken their main activity in the country of the proposed secondment, so be it abroad or in Ireland, for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to recruitment. this rule also applies to optional placement. And again, we will require documentary evidence from successful applicants that will confirm that this rule, this requirement has been met. So as I said, the rule is the same for both fellowship types. We just replaced the country of the secondment or placement by Ireland, but it is really the same rule across the board. The scheme is open to applicants of any citizenship, of any nationality, so there are no rules that would prevent people from certain countries from benefiting from the fellowship. There, however, are some restrictions in terms of which countries can people who are not EU member states or associated countries nationals go to for secondment. So again, if there are any specific questions regarding this rule, read very carefully the terms and conditions, determine your eligibility, and as for all rules, we will again need to receive documentary evidence confirming that if an applicant is a non-EU national and wishes to undertake placement or secondment outside of EU, these applicants would have to give us documentary evidence confirming that they have spent at least 5 consecutive years undertaking full-time research activity to be eligible for the fellowship. A couple of slides just summarizing important dates for the call. I won't be going through these individually because you can refer to them after, and they are published on the website. Maybe just to say, we are using online application system which is going to shut down 4 p.m. on the day of the deadline, and no late submissions are accepted. The system just does not accept it. It does not reopen. Here is a slide with some expected timelines once the call closes, what we expect to be the timeline for the next steps. Our aim is to adhere to these times as closely as possible. There might be some changes to some of these dates, but there is not going to be any change to the start date of the fellowships. It will not be possible to postpone start date of those fellowships due to the contractual obligations with the European Commission. So now I'm now going to kind of divert slightly from what I said at the beginning, that we will not be, or did I say that? I wanted to say that we will not be providing proposal preparation support. This is the role of the research office in your home host organization. The Council, as the funding agency, isn't really in the position to provide that, but we do have a slide in our guide for applicants which kind of summarizes the proposal preparation and submission process, and we produce that to provide a bit more, let's say, a bit of clarity to people who are new to preparing proposals which involve other organizations other than their proposed home host institution, and also to maybe the NGOs that might be also very new to these processes. So just to clarify, what is the role of each participant in the process, and really the key person in the entire process is the applicant. Caroline, or individual fellowship applications, even though individual fellowships, even though they are aimed to support collaborative research projects, it really is all driven, and is supposed to be all driven by the applicant, by the fellow. So that's what the slide intends to illustrate. And what I wanted to draw your attention to, there is a little picture of a building which says Institutional Research Office endorses application. And what I wanted to say, and I have a slide later on, please do approach the research office way before the application deadline. Engage with them if you haven't approached them yet. Do approach them. They are a very good source of advice and information and support. It is their job. They are working with applicants. They support them, and they can really help you to enhance likelihood of your application being successful. So it's not only that they would be endorsing when it's all done and the application is fully submitted and in the system. They can make a big difference to your application. So yeah, here is the slide that I said I have later on. So really do engage with the research office. They can't help you if you don't know about you. As I also mentioned previously, they have a role in answering questions. But then where we wouldn't impose any burden on the research office. If there are technical issues with the online system, please do contact us directly. There might be it might not really help you to contact the research office. If something that seems to be easy or obvious, by all means, I wouldn't want to discourage you from engaging with the research office, but the council is accepting reports of technical issues directly from applicants. Now, this slide also is included in the guide for applicants, and I wanted to bring it in this webinar just to clarify the issue or the matter of registration of organizations. So you would have seen, hopefully, on our website that we have a list of organizations which registered interest in the scheme. So there's a web page with a list of organizations. There is information about their areas of interest. You can get a bit more details about these organizations through the research office, but this registration of interest is optional step. It does not have to be done by the organization in order to participate in the scheme. Applicants can identify organizations by other means, and there is no need, if the organization does not wish to be promoted on our website, they don't need to complete the expression of interest form. What they, however, have to do, and this step is mandatory, and that's on the right side of the slide. Each organization which is to support an actual application for Caroline Fellowship needs to complete a registration in the online system form, even if they previously registered their interest to participate in the scheme, and even if they are already listed on that webpage as interested in the scheme. If they had not completed the other registration form, be it for the first call of Caroline scheme or a few weeks ago, that you would not be able to select them in the system and assign them to your application as your proposed home host, as your proposed main partner organization. So I would advise applicants to check that the organization that they wish to apply with as their proposed main partner organization is actually registered in the online system. And if you don't find them, please approach them and ask them to register. You can invite them through the online system to complete the registration. There is a link on our website, so there are means for doing that. But what is important to know, to keep in mind, is that the two registrations, the two online forms, fulfill a different purpose. They ask different questions, therefore there are two different forms. We are aware it might be perceived as a confusing and maybe overly complicated aspect of the scheme, but there is no point in asking all the questions that are not relevant until the point where an actual application is being submitted. So again, if there are any questions regarding the registration, feel free to, again, either approach the research office or ask us and we will clarify, or the proposed partner organization should feel free to contact us directly. We'll engage with them and we'll get that clarified. We contacted Caroline applicants that submitted an application under the first call and asked them if they would like to share some advice or some experience with their future colleagues, with people who are applying for the second call. And we felt that there might be a benefit in sharing some of that advice with you. So there is the slide which you can read. Some of these points might not have been experienced in your home host organization. There might have been no issues with proposed partner organizations. There might have been no issues with the signing an agreement between the two organizations. So whilst the council wouldn't want to enter the area of proposal preparation support as such, we felt that these points might not be shared knowledge in all institutions, so we felt this would be appropriate to include into the webinar. What also is a borderline between the role of the research office and the council's role is addressed in this slide. And again, because research offices would not have direct access to comments that the international assessors provide, we do not share feedback that is sent to individual applicants with research offices. That is confidential, and it is only provided to individual applicants. We included a couple of pages with feedback from international assessors in the guide for applicants. So again, there are just a couple of examples on the screen, and please have a look at the guide for applicants. There is more in there. The evaluation criteria for proposals, I just wanted to bring this slide include in the webinar because people who are familiar with Marie Skłodowska-Curie would know that these are the key headings, but we also have a number of applicants who would be familiar with the Irish Research Council's structure of evaluation criteria, and there is a bit of difference between how our own and council-only funded postdoctoral fellowships are assessed and what criteria what criteria are actually used. So again, please do keep this in mind as you are preparing and finalizing your application, and all details are in the guide for applicants. Sorry. Now, this is a very small print, and I guess there was no need to have it a bigger print because it's again all included in the guide for applicants. But because it's such a big document, we felt there is no harm in repeating some of these really important rules in the webinar and have them included in the slides on the website. Please be careful not to submit more than one application. If you submit more than one application through the online system, you will be deemed ineligible, even if that application is not endorsed by the research office. It is a second application and you will be deemed ineligible. We don't accept anything outside of the online system, so that's again, especially make sure that your non-academic mentors and referees are aware of the requirements. Again, you can return to this slide after the webinar when the slides are on the website. Just before we finish the slides, it might seem like a very distant future, but it's actually not. We will be operating under time constraints due to the overarching grant agreement with the European Commission. We have very strict deadlines. The end of funding for the program is determined by an agreement with the European Commission, so we don't really have any flexibility in terms of start dates. So applicants really should be prepared to produce the documentary evidence in a very timely manner once results are communicated and once requirements for award offers are communicated to successful applicants. Please be prepared to provide us with the documents such as original or certified copies of your transcripts. Be prepared to produce documentary evidence to confirm your compliance with mobility requirements. I'm now just noticing that there is a unfinished, we didn't include the date apologies for that. That's end of April. I will amend that in the slides that will be published, but obviously the recording will have still this date without a date, so apologies for that. So I think that this concludes the presentation that we prepared. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I'll ask just my colleague Miri if there are any other questions that might have been submitted. So if there are no further questions, we might conclude the webinar now. We can maybe keep the FAQ open for 2 or 3 more minutes if somebody wants to send more questions that we might still answer. I'm not sure if you can see if somebody's typing. So thank you again. I'll stop the recording now, and we'll publish the recording on our website, and we will notify the applicants by email. Thank you very much, and good luck with your proposal.